Back to the one and only Daytona International Speedway for our fourth day here. We started on Wednesday. It's been a long week. As you can tell, my voice changes every day. I haven't reached the professional status of the man to my right, Mr. Pat Gonsalves, the silky smooth voice of Q107 and Daytona International Speedway. However, we had a great week, Pat. We started on Wednesday at the Daytona 200 Monument. We saw 2 nights of flat track. We've had 3 days of racing here at Daytona International Speedway. We just wrapped up the Daytona 200 and the press conference. Hopefully everybody saw that. We got a little bit of inside scoop. And we also have an exclusive interview with the winner, Josh Herron. That'll be coming up. We'll post that a little bit later on. They're running the Daytona King of the Baggers. The Mission King of the Baggers is happening right now. So we'll get those results as we wrap up here. We got about an hour podcast coming to you. We're going to start with Super Hooligans. Pat, thanks for joining us, and let's get right into some of the racing results. It's been a big day.
Well, before the Daytona 200 that started at 10 after 1 Eastern this afternoon, they had a couple of preliminary races this morning, and it was a thrilling second Hooligans race here today. 6 riders battling. I'm looking at the margin of victory. 0.020 of a second. Corey West with an incredible ride, getting around Jake Lewis and Cody Wyman.
With only 0.04 of a second. It was a 3-way photo finish.
And those first 6 riders separated by less than 0.2 of a second. It was that close at the line. But Corey West takes the win on the Saddleman Harley Davidson, just ahead of Jake Lewis on the number 85 Harley. So the Saddleman team runs 1-2, and then Cody Wyman on the Gator Harley, Kyle Wyman Racing Harley Davidson up there for third. So
the third Wyman.
Yeah, Harley sweeps the podium, and then we had Tyler O'Hara on the Factory Indian, and his teammate, 3-time Australian Superbike champion, who's really impressed here at Daytona, Troy Herfoss, finishing in 5th. So a great Super Hooligans race to kick off the racing earlier today here at Daytona International Speedway.
It was a really fast start. 6 riders broke away on the first couple laps, and they gapped the rest of the field by about 8 to 11 seconds. And they ended up, that 6-bike breakaway ended up finishing about 16.5 seconds ahead of the rest of the field. And as you mentioned, it was West, Lewis, Wyman, O'Hara, Herfoss, and Travis Wyman, Cody's brother, who were able to get into that breakaway. 4 Harley Davidsons and 2 Indians, rather. The leaders started at a race pace around the minute 54 range, and the Saddleman boys were running 53. So the couple of the Indians got out really quick, and the Harley Davidsons kind of caught up. You could see that they were about a half second a lap faster. They worked their way up through. Of course, they used the draft perfectly. And the Harley Davidson versus Indian battle continues going into the next round. Several leaders, Cody Wyman, the third brother of the Wyman brothers, he led for a little while. West and Lewis, as you mentioned, were able to draft by on the final lap. And as you mentioned, the top 3 separated by less than 0.08 of a second, and the top 5 covered by 0.155. What an amazing way to start the racing this afternoon.
Well, the other thing, Kenny, behind that group of 6 riders that were battling for the lead and the podium spots, we had another multi-rider battle that was just as good, involving Hawk Mazzata, who followed up his 5th place win in race 1 yesterday with another top 10 finish. He was 7th behind that 6-rider battle for the win. Also, Hayden Schultz, a good ride for him on the Harley in 8th. Nate Kern on the BMW coming back with a solid 9th place finish. And then Stefano Mesa on the Energica yesterday with the delay after that red flag. They simply ran out of power on the bike, and Mesa had to park it. He comes back here today to finish 10th in the Super Hooligans race. So it was a great 6-lap final to kick things off here this morning at Daytona.
Yeah, we mentioned that yesterday that there were a lot of different manufacturers in that class. Right behind Mesa on that electric motorcycle was Hunter Dunham on a Ducati, 2 KTMs ridden by Eubanks and Duffy. Foster was on another BMW. There were 3 KTMs ridden by Peasley, Berkeley, and Lane, another BMW by Canale, and then another Indian back there for Eshelman, another KTM, a Triumph by Cole King, a Yamaha by Mitch Stein, and then an Aprilia of Leo Sowers and J.C. Cohen on a Suzuki. So a lot of manufacturers now part of that Hooligans class. And Roland Sands was talking through the MotoAmerica live broadcast that they opened up the rules to bring in more manufacturers, and I think that they've done a great job. Again, they started the weekend with 37 race entries. They had 24 finishers today, several different manufacturers. I think they're off to a great start.
Yeah, and the points battle going to the next round, as you would expect after just a couple of races, very tight. But I get the feeling in Super Hooligans it's going to go down to the final round before they decide this championship, and it looks like it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, absolutely. Next race on the docket this afternoon was the Bellissimoto Twins Cup. Another great race. Can't say that it was an exciting race up front, as Gus Rodeo said several times this afternoon, that he just had the perfect weekend. He led every practice session. He led every qualifying session. He won yesterday by a good amount, and he won today by over 11 seconds. So Gus Rodeo and that Aprilia team has that number 96 dialed in this year.
Well, he was simply the class of the Twins Cup field here over the last couple of days. Won by about 11 seconds yesterday. Today was almost a carbon copy replay of what happened in race 1 yesterday afternoon. But behind him, we had a 4-rider battle that was absolutely superb, involving 4 riders, with Rocco Landers finally coming through in second. Landers on that brand new Suzuki GSX 8R, and impressive that bike making its debut in the series, that he was able to get it up there in second. And I think, Aprilia and Yamaha have been the 2 dominant brands, but Suzuki is going to be right there, and it may be, the best of the 3 bikes by the time they get to the end of the year.
Yeah, and Rocco Landers said it several times today that he first saw that motorcycle on Wednesday. So they've made a lot of great first impressions. There was a crash at the very beginning. Avery Dreyer, who was third yesterday, crashed right in the beginning. So right into turn number 1, he got crossed up. His front wheel crossed into the back wheel, in that crowded turn number 1. So he ended up riding off and went down. So he was third yesterday and did not finish today. He got his front wheel caught up there. As you mentioned, Rocco Landers developing that Suzuki GSX 8R from Vance and Hines. Vance and Hines is also running a really strong Suzuki drag racing program, so I think they've got a couple tricks up their sleeve to get that bike some power and performance. And of course, it's the legendary Terry Vance who was here this weekend. Terry Vance and the Vance and Hines team that have legendary, or have built legendary riders and teams within the pro racing series here. Going back to the Yamaha team, they had a factory Ducati team. They've had factory Harley-Davidson teams. So Rocco Landers, the benefit now of the Vance and Hines technology, that they were saying that the bike is basically stock now. So imagine what's going to happen when they get a little bit of technology into that.
And Kenny, I was going to say, Rocco Landers' teammate Rossi Moore had a great ride as well, putting his Suzuki in 4th. So 2 Suzukis up there in the top 5 among the Aprilias and Yamaha machines.
Yeah, Ben Galati had a good ride as well. He was mixing it up with Rocco Landers, as you mentioned, Rossi Moore. Alessandro Di Mario was there as well, and that was that 4-rider battle, just back and forth, drafting past each other on every lap. On lap 4, Dominic Doyle had a mechanical. He was actually running in second place. It looked like there may have been a 2-rider breakaway, but but Rodeo had gapped him still. But it was possible that Dominic Doyle could have had a lonely second place ride if he had not have broken, and then that 4-rider battle came up through to dominate there. Rodeo's lap times, minute 55.413 to 56.1 on that Aprilia. Again, 11-second win. Landers and Galati and Moore were right around the 156.9 range. And DeMario was around the 157 range. His best lap of 57.226 on his Aprilia. As you mentioned, Rocco Landers on the Suzuki takes second place. DeMario was third. Rodeo was just dominant over the two races and really throughout the weekend. A couple racers to make note of here. Sonia Lloyd on the Yamaha, part of the Giacomoto Yamaha team with Chuck Giacchetto, finished 12th. A really good finish for her after some of the struggles she had early on. Ed Sullivan, also part of that team. He was the crew chief for Matt Skoltz. He finished 8th. Ray Hoffman, one of the old guys, he was one of Jody Berry's crew chiefs. He finished 9th. And the racing dentist, Jeff Perk, finished 15th.
Yeah, and some interesting finishes in there. A great ride for Sonia. I think that's a couple of 12th place finishes over the last couple of days here at Daytona.
Yeah,
so
I'm really proud of that.
She's got a good shot of finishing top 10 in the series.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we get back to some racetracks where we're not relying 100% on top speed, who knows? She might be able to use some racecraft and work her way into a little bit closer to the top 5, perhaps.
Yeah. And then, of course, just after 1 o'clock this afternoon, the start of the 82nd Daytona 200. And Kenny, the first part of the race was as advertised. We figured there would be a multi-rider battle. And indeed, we did have that with about 12 riders in that lead draft. And I did one of the old school lap charts.
Yep.
We've got electronic timing and scoring, and there is one more race to go here today at Daytona. That is the second of the Mission King of the Baggers races. They were in a bit of a rain delay. A bit of a light shower had come through the Daytona Beach area, so MotoAmerica officials put everything on hold.
Just what you want right before the bagger race, right?
Yeah, but they can't run in the wet, so they'll make sure the track is perfectly dry before they roll off that bagger race scheduled to go 8 laps on the 3.51 mile track here at Daytona.
And I'm glad you mentioned that because on the MotoAmerica broadcast and several times previously, everybody keeps saying it's 3.56 mile course. It's not. It's the 3.51 mile course. Obviously, you remember when they shortened that course a little bit to make room for, and they used the old track as the pit exit to make it a little bit safer for riders and teams to enter. So the race track is actually a 3.51 mile course, still 57 laps, not the 3.56 that you would have seen on the broadcast.
Yeah. Kenny, we mentioned the 12-rider draft up front in the early going. That involved our race winner, Josh Herron, who had actually started in the second row. And I think he gave all indications early that he was going to be a force in this race. He started in the second row, got off to a great start, grabbed the lead on that opening lap, led the first lap before Tyler Scott took over. Then Richie Escalante led lap number 4. Bobby Fong led lap number 5. And so it was back and forth up front for the first 12 laps or so. Even British rider, Cooper got up there to lead a lap. Yeah. So it was back and forth, positions being swapped at every corner virtually. But it was that first series of pit stops that came as early as lap 16 or 17, particularly for the Ray Hall Ducati team. But generally between about lap 16 and 20 is when we had all those pit stops. And then that's where that 12-rider pack sort of fell apart.
It broke away.
And from there, that is where Herron, who had an absolutely brilliant pit stop, was able to open up a bit of a gap that he really never gave up.
Yeah.
Even with the second series of pit stops, he had another great pit stop. And as you heard in the post-race interview here in the media center, he wasn't all that confident that his crew would be able to get him in and out of the pits. But
well, they had struggled, right?
Yeah.
They struggled in practice. They struggled in the pit stop challenge. They struggled. So, he didn't end up apologizing for not having full trust in his crew, but they pulled it out, and he gave credit to them for the win. He said it was 100% my team. They did an amazing job. A couple of things, Bobby Fong on that number 50 Suzuki, the Wrench Motorcycles Suzuki, that's all part of the David Anthony race team. And, they were kind of a sleeper all weekend. They weren't necessarily one of the fast bikes that everybody was watching for, but he ended up finishing third in the time attack, which put him on the front row. And he ended up, having a really good race, finishing fourth overall. Great ride for Bobby Fong. He was just kind of that guy that just didn't get all the spotlight this week, but did a phenomenal job. A couple of things that stood out in the race. Carl Haneke actually turned the fastest lap of the race, a 148.628, which put him at 181 miles an hour on a 600. Unbelievable lap time. Matt Skoltz was here. He's actually going to be riding in the MotoAmerica Super Sport classes for the rest of the season, and he was actually the fuel man for Josh Herrin. So that was really interesting as well. We saw.
Was that Lauren?
Loris Paz.
Paz was the fuel guy.
was the fuel guy. And Matthew Skoltz was he was kind of bouncing around to some of the different Yamaha pits. But Matthew Skoltz is going to be riding a Yamaha in the Super Sport races coming up, starting in Atlanta. And Loris Baz was the fuel man for Josh Herrin on all those pit stops. He thought it was a great advantage because Baz is so tall, and he just kind of reaches over and sets the fuel in. And so he was really one of the best guys, in regards to stature, to be able to do that. So a couple of guys we saw this weekend. Thomas Steves was hanging out. John Kaczynski was hanging out. He wanted to see the races this weekend. A lot of other legendary riders were here. Big surprise, Xavi Flores, who really was one of the early first lap mechanical. People thought he might be the favorite to win the race, and he was out immediately. Wasn't expecting that. Brandon Posh, if you watch the broadcast, had a massive fuel spill on their first fuel stop. That was a mess. Hopefully everybody in their pit is okay. Nicolo Canepa did not start the race, so that was the third of the Yamaha riders, so that was a big blow to the team. Richard Cooper was out somewhere around lap 25, 26, and Cooper was doing really well. He had a good, strong top 10. He was running top 10. I think he had gotten close to the top 5 a couple times with the pit stop.
Led that one lap, but as you said, ran up among the top 5 riders and was in that lead group.
Yeah, but Blake Davis was running really well for a while, and he dropped out of the top 20. True Love succumbed to injury. He came in for a pit stop and just couldn't get back on the motorcycle, so True Love had to bow out. Corey Alexander and a couple other riders had time penalties because of their pit speed violations. And Kayla Yakoff, towards the end of the race, reeled in her teammate PJ Jacobson. That was on lap 29 or so with Teague Hobbs, and ended up being the best finisher of the 3 Rahal riders. That was surprising.
And we'll go through the entire rundown here on touch on a few riders, but indeed, Kayla Yakoff, after really struggling here on Thursday, really put it together over the last couple of days, ended up finishing 12th.
Great
and
run.
As Kenny said, was the best among the 3 Rahal team riders. You might be hearing in the background that noise is the roar of the Mission King of the Baggers race that has started. And Kenny, it looks like Tyler O'Hara on the Factory Indian is leading. Kyle Wyman on the Factory Harley in second, and Troy Herfoss, the 3-time Australian Superbike champion, who has been extremely impressive here at Daytona, running in third.
Yep. As
we just checking to see the lap
Rispoli is fourth, and looks like that's a group of 4 that's running up front right now with a 2-second gap back to Onsong in fifth.
Right. So that race just getting underway. We'll continue to update that. And the lap times, as expected, 1:51 on these baggers. So very close to what the Super Sport machines were running in the Daytona 200.
On what may be a damp track.
Yeah, that track's certainly not as good as what we ran the Daytona 200 on. Let's take you through the top 10, and then we'll go through the entire rundown of 60-plus riders who were scheduled to start here this afternoon. As you've heard, Josh Herron takes the win over Tyler Scott. The margin of victory, 45.660 seconds. That's got to be one of the largest margins of victory
in a while,
because the guy who was running in second place, Richie Escalante, ran out of fuel on the last lap, ended up coasting across the line in fifth. Meanwhile, the riders who had been third, fourth, fifth were all able to, or third and fourth, were able to get by him. Tyler Scott on the Vision Wheel M4 X-Star Suzuki up for second, and Hayden Gillum finishing in third on the Vezra Racing Machine. Bobby Fong in fourth, and Richie Escalante on the second of the Vision Wheel M4 X-Star Suzukis in fifth. And Kenny, 4 of the top riders on those Suzuki GSXR 750s. They were very strong, but it's the Ducati Panigale V2 that does take the win.
Yep.
The rest of the top 10 there, you mentioned the Yamaha riders. They both went faster than they ever have here at Daytona. Of course, came here for the first time last October to prep for their initial run in the 200. And I think both of those riders impressive. Karl Haneke from the Czech Republic in sixth, and his teammate Marvin Fritz from Germany finishes seventh.
Yep.
Brandon Posh, looking to become a 3-time Daytona 200 winner, ends up finishing in eighth. Of course, becoming a 3-time winner was accomplished by Josh Herron. And then Stefano Mesa on the Boulder Motorsports Ducati finishing in ninth. Got lapped very late in the race, so the top 8 riders all finished on the lead lap. Mesa a lap down in ninth, but that'll provide some pretty good prize money.
It was still a good finish, too.
Good finish for Mesa.
I think that Josh Herron's race was so flawless. Richie Escalante's race was so flawless.
Except for
running out of gas on the last lap. Tyler Scott, Hayden Gillum, Bobby Fong, those guys had just flawless races, which is fairly rare for this. And Mesa I think they just were running real nice, consistent laps. I mean, Mesa was turning fast laps, 46s, was his fast lap.
49. I think that's total time in the race there.
Oh, yep. Yeah,
but Mesa was there. I'm just looking at that time. I think he went a little bit faster in qualifying.
Yeah, he was doing 48s. Yeah.
And rounding out the top 10 was the first of the Canadian riders who came here to Daytona. Ben Young on the Bridgestone Battle Axe Suzuki ended up finishing 10th. He was knocking around the top 20 pretty much throughout the race.
Yeah.
Put in a good solid run.
Good ride.
Of course, he will prepare to defend his Canadian Superbike Championship beginning in May at Shannerville Motorsport Park. But Ben Young with an absolutely solid ride there to finish in 10th. And then, Kenny, why don't you take us through 11th through 20th, because there's some nice stories there here this afternoon from the 200-miler.
Yeah, Teague Hobbs, another good ride for him. Another one of the Vision Wheel M4 X-Star Suzuki riders. He finished 11th, just ahead of Kayla Yakov on the Ray Hall Ducati Moto machine. Again, really good ride for her, finishing the best out of the 3 Ray Hall Ducati machines. Matt Trulove was 13th. PJ Jacobson, the second of the Ray Hall Ducati riders. Danny Eslick, the 4-time winner on the Triumph, ends up 15th. Corey Alexander, the final Ray Hall Ducati rider, was 16th. Diego Perez was 17th. Super Carlos Soltis was 18th on that number 60 Suzuki GSXR 750. Blake Davis ended up 19th on the number 22 Yamaha. And the Brazilian Superbike champion, Danilo Lewis, on the number 94 machine. He's riding a Yamaha. He normally rides the BMW in Superstock Superbike. competition. So, but he switches to a Yamaha this weekend for the Daytona 200, and Danilo Lewis rounds out the top 20.
Yeah, looking at Danny Eslick, 15th. Danny seemed to be, the program was put together late, only about 3 weeks ago, really. Michelle Lindsay and the crew, the band was back together, as they said. They put in a strong effort, but the depth of the field this year, Kenny, I think, for the Daytona 200 was very telling. And Danny Eslick, although he was, pretty much up there on the pace, just didn't seem to have that little extra. And having won the 2018 Daytona 200 for his fourth, trying to get that elusive fifth Daytona 200 win is proving to be a monumental task. Of course, he's trying to join Scott Russell and Miguel Duhamel as the only two Daytona 200 5-time winners.
Yeah, fitness was really tough this week. It was fairly humid. It was really warm. And even some of the riders with the best fitness in the paddock really struggled. We saw Josh Herron come into the media center just gassed, fully exhausted, and just wanted water. And he was afraid to drink the water that had labels on it because he was afraid that he was going to get disqualified for something. So there was some joking going on there, but he was just completely gassed and just couldn't wait to get back to the motorhome, get in the shower. So that being said, I talked to Danny a couple times this weekend, and he wasn't in his best fitness. I'm not sure he was really ready because the program did come together pretty late. I'm not sure he got a lot of training in, but he's Danny Eslick. He's a legend around this place, and he's got a lot of friends in the paddock. I think him and the team are gonna be happy with a 15th this year.
Yeah, well, that'll provide a nice little paycheck. I believe $175,000 in all, being spread among the riders who finished here today. Let's take you through 21st through 30th. 21st was Canadian rider Trevor Daly, who did the majority of the build on those two Suzuki GSXR 750s. A lot of the speed parts and bits, of course, come from Team Hammer. So they spent the better part of the winter putting the bikes together that Ben Young rode to 10th, and he rode to a 21st place finish. He was 3 laps down here at the end. Still managed a best lap in the race of 1:52. Not again as quick when you're running among all those riders. Not as quick as they were able to turn in qualifying. Shane Maggs on a Yamaha, Shane Maggs Racing rider, 22nd. Jason Waters, who was working with Dan Kruger as the guy helping him out on the Kawasaki, 23rd. The veteran Taylor Knapp, 44 on the Triumph. The Apex Manufacturing sponsored rider, 24th. Alan Phillips, 162 in 25th on a Kawasaki. Matt Simpson led a group of Canadian riders that were just beyond the top 25. Matt Simpson on the Yamaha in 26th position. Chuck Ivey, 131 in 27th. 28th was Austin Martinez on the number 999 machine. That was a Kawasaki. And then Alex Michel, rookie rider, making his first start in the Daytona 200, finishes 29th on the Speed Factory Kawasaki. Ryan Snooks, the former military serviceman on the Yamaha, the Ready to Ride Motorcycle Performance Center Yamaha, 30th. And then Maverick Sear, who we were following. We had a great little bit that we did with Maverick, third generation road racer, whose ride was sponsored by Ready to Race, an organization that's helping out young racers, and also a tribute to the late Chris Ellis, who was the man behind getting Triumph back here to the Daytona 200. 55, Joshua Booth was 32nd. Sean Hopkins on the 39 Yamaha. The Hopkins Racing entry was 33rd. Tony Blackall on the number 100 machine, 34th. And Rigo Salazar, number 227, finished in the 25th position. And then, Kenny, just 5 other riders who actually were scored. If you didn't complete 75% of the race, you're not classified. Consequently, we had a very long and large list of DNFs, and a few did not start.
Yeah. Yeah, Bowen, Andrew Bowen, Israel Gillette, Austin Sierra, Anthony Fania Jr., and Eddie Kay round out the field there for the top 40. And as you mentioned, the non-classified riders that perhaps either had a mechanical, did not finish at the top of the list was Peter Hickman, unfortunately. Number 4, Josh Hayes on the CSU One Cure J-Force Yamaha. A lot of people had hoped that Josh Hayes might get on the podium again. David Anthony, number 25, didn't do well. However, as we mentioned, Bobby Fong in the top 5, good ride for his team. Jason Farrell, 861, didn't finish this year, nor did his wife, Jessica Capizzi. Richard Cooper didn't score as well. That was Peter Hickman's teammate. So we saw Cooper go out early, and then Hickman, unfortunately, behind him. Harry Truelove didn't make the checkered flag as well, nor did Tony Storniolo. Sam Guerin, Gary Jankowski, Max Angles didn't make it. Brad Mosier, as we mentioned early, Xavi Flores didn't make it as well. Tom Taparis, Gus Rodeo, Sebastian Tremblay, and Brad McRae.
We're all non-starters.
All non-starters.
McRae actually crashed coming out of the pits on the warm-up. They've been having all kinds of brake issues with the bike.
Actually.
Yeah. And he was coming on the access road to go on the racetrack and got on the brakes. There were no brakes there. He grazed the wall, put it on the ground, almost collected another rider. They did get it back around, and I'm assuming that after discussion with the crew, they were just not confident that they had solved the brake issue with the bike, and I think they made the right decision simply not to start the race. But Brad's a talented rider, a former amateur sport bike champion up in Canada, and he'll be getting set to try to win the Pro Sport Bike Championship this year. Likewise, Sebastian Tremblay, not sure what the issues were with Tremblay, why he wasn't able to start. And of course, Gus Rodeo, on his Ducati, they elected to just not run the race. Maybe he was happy with the Twins Cup races and decided to park that.
Yeah, he did mention that in his post-race press conference that, just with everything going on here, with the safety issues that exist here at Daytona Speedway and the speed and everything else, with very little time on the motorcycle, he just didn't feel that he had control of that Ducati yet. He says, I can put my Aprilia anywhere I want on the racetrack. And he says, I can ride the Aprilia. He says, but the Ducati is sort of riding me. The Ducati tells me where it wants to go, and I can't control it right now. So I just need more time on it. That's all he said.
Yeah, Kenny, while we went on the podcast there, they had started the Mission King of the Baggers, race number 2, and it looks like this one is official and in the books. And yesterday's winner is today's winner, Kyle Wyman on the factory Harley-Davidson, the former King of the Baggers champion, with a great start to his season going back-to-back. And once again, it is Troy Herfoss on the Indian who finishes in second, and James Rispoli, as he did yesterday, comes home here in third place.
Good ride for Rispoli.
Certainly, based on what we've seen here at Daytona, this is going to be an absolute monumental battle for the championship between the factory Indian and the factory Harley-Davidson riders.
Yep.
Why don't you take us through the rest of the rundown there?
Yeah, Rispoli was third. Tyler O'Hara just off the podium on that number 29 Harley-Davidson, Indian rather. Hayden Gillum was fifth after finishing on the podium in the 200. He had to finish up here in the media center and then run back up and get on another motorcycle.
They interviewed him, and then they just cut him loose to get over there. But he's got to be in good shape, doing 57 laps in the 200 and then having to get on the bagger machine there and brings it home in fifth.
And his best lap was a 150.392, matching the two up front, Kyle Wyman and Troy Herfoss. So Gillum, the defending national champion in that class, finishes fifth. Sixth place was Kyle Onsong. The seventh place rider was Jake Lewis on the number 85. Corey West was eighth. Travis Wyman ninth. And rounding out the top 10, Rocco Landers, his first ride on that Vance and Hines Harley-Davidson.
Max Flinders got up to 11th. Jesse Janisch got to run the race. He thought they were going to keep him out of the race, but so Jesse Janisch got to run. He finished 12th. Zachary Schumacher was 13th, the number 90 machine. Gunnar Oluet was the 14th place rider. Ruben Zaus did make the race. We didn't see him with any results yesterday, so Zaus finally gets on the racetrack with the number 11 Harley Davidson to finish 15th. And two non-starters, DNF, Shane Narbonne and Bobby Fong.
Yeah, neither one of those riders started. I assume Narbonne was an issue with the motorcycle, and Bobby Fong, after running 57 laps in the Daytona 200, unlike Hayden Gillum, said, that is enough. I'm going to just sit out this bagger event. Interesting on Ruben Zaus. He came over here. They announced that he was going to be running the King of the Bagger series. And sadly, from what I understand, the bike just really wasn't competitive or ready. They missed the race yesterday. Looks like they got it back together, but just judging from his times, he was just not really up to speed, not even able to break 2 minutes. So
yeah, I mean,
it looks like that fueling crew have got to go back to the drawing board, and they've got a lot more work to do on that motorcycle. Certainly, Zaus has got the talent if he's got a competitive machine to go up and run with the likes of Wyman.
8 to 10 seconds off the lead is not competitive. So, unfortunately, they'll have to go back to the drawing board, as you mentioned. Yeah.
So, Kyle Wyman will come out of Daytona with the championship points lead in the Mission King of the Baggers. Troy Herfoss will be in the number 2 spot, and James Rispoli, Kyle Wyman's Harley-Davidson factory teammate, is going to be 3rd.
Yep. Yeah, so a good way to wrap up Daytona there. Anything else you wanted to cover on the Daytona 200? There's so many stories that are going to come out over the next few days, but
yeah, I mean, certainly the one update I wanted to make was on we had the strongest contingent of Canadian riders down here. Obviously, Ben Young, by far the best, finishing 10th. But as we covered yesterday, Alex Coelho had that nasty crash back here during qualifying. And he had apparently the collarbone, first reports was a broken collarbone. Apparently it is a sort of a hairline fracture, so they're going to let it heal. So no need to operate on that, but he did have two low, I think it's just one lower broken leg, and he was on the mend. I think they were hoping that he'd be able to get out of hospital in the next couple of days, but
good.
I know I've known Alex for a long time. He's run here at Daytona many, many times. His bike was still parked over there. We took a get well balloon, and we had a get well card that all the racers were signing. So hopefully that'll lift his spirits. And I'm not sure if this is the crash and the injury that signals it's time to retire. He's in his late 40s, or whether or not, like so many riders, it gives him further motivation to carry on. And we'll see him in the CSBK championship later on this season once he's recovered from his injuries.
Speaking of that, real quick, the CSBK series, 6 rounds of Canadian Superbike Championship this year in 2024. That's going to be covered on RevTV.
No, not on Rev. Oh. Yeah, we need to correct that.
Sorry about that.
TSN, our sports network, that's our version of ESPN. They've been carrying the series for many, many years now. Colin Fraser and the crew will be handling coverage of that. They cover all the Superbike, all the sport bike races. Rev is looking at possibly doing the Bagger Racing League event that's going to be part of that big weekend at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park
in Toronto,
August 9, 10, and 11. And of course, this is the opening weekend for MotoGP. They ran their sprint race today. We don't want to give out results in case anybody has taped it and they want to watch it. But the full Grand Prix, of course, goes tomorrow from Qatar. And of course, we had a couple of weeks ago the opening round of World Superbike. That'll be continuing on. believe, is it Portugal is the next round? I could be wrong on that, but I think both of those championships with all the changes and new riders on new teams, new motorcycles, it's going to be a very interesting 2024, as it will be here in MotoAmerica with some of the changes,
A lot of new
including
riders.
Kenny. I asked you earlier, you going to Mid-Ohio? Because I think they're going to get an absolute record crowd at Mid-Ohio.
Yeah.
There's a lot of race fans and a lot of population within just a few hours drive of Mid-Ohio. So I think MotoAmerica is going to have one of its biggest crowds.
Road America is my home track, so it's about 3 hours from the Chicago area. 640 acres of beautiful racing parkland and a 4-mile road course there. They've had record crowds every year for the last couple of years for MotoAmerica. And, so I think that part of that crowd is going to get to Mid-Ohio. Road racing is much more popular on the East Coast than it has been for a while as well. So I think that both of those rounds are going to see record crowds, as well as Pit Race, which isn't very far from there either. So, and then you guys are going to be at the Loudon Classic. Hopefully those crowds also translate to the Canadian Superbike Championship round in Toronto. It's all sort of in that Midwest, Northeast region around the Great Lakes. So hopefully this is the rise of road racing in North America.
Yeah. And I think what we saw here over the last 3 days, Kenny, I think bodes well for the rest of the season for MotoAmerica. You've got some new motorcycles, some new teams, and I can't think of a tougher racetrack when you've got a new program or a new motorcycle, as we saw here. As I said, 4 of the top 5 here, Suzuki GSXR 750s. And I think we're going to be hearing a lot more from the Rahal Ducati team. The team really did bounce back. All 3 of their riders finishing up here inside of the top 20. And to be fair, I've been talking to them since Tuesday, and they've made it very, very clear. This is for testing. This is a one-off race. It's not part of the points championship for MotoAmerica Supersport. They only have a few days on the motorcycles. This is a test. This is only a test. So, but I think out of this weekend, they got some good data. They know what they need to do. They've figured some things out before the first race in Atlanta. And I think that they're going to show up in Atlanta ready to go. One other item, and we'll just touch on it briefly because we do not have all the facts and information. Josh Herrin arrived here at Daytona with a blue and white livery, with the main sponsor being OnlyFans. And it was on the bike for the first couple of days. And I think there were some people who had concerns about the nature of that sponsor. Some of the content on the OnlyFans website, not what you would call family friendly. And I'm not sure if it was a decision that the team made or there was some direction and a request from MotoAmerica. But this morning when I got to the garage, they had their old red-black paint scheme on the bike, which is what he ran in the race today. So
Warhorse
I'm sure,
standard livery.
And I'm sure we're going to be hearing more about what that is. But I would think by the time they roll into Road Atlanta in April, whatever the issues were there may have been resolved, because Josh Herrin has been working with that company and sponsor
3 years
for a number of years now. And, he still had it on his helmet and so forth. So hopefully they can get all of that sorted out, because sponsorship is tough to come by, and we don't need to make that process any tougher than it already is.
We talked to Josh after the post-race press conference, because he had made mention the fact that they had to change overnight and they weren't sure, and he wasn't sure where the decision had come from, but as a team they decided to just change back to the previous graphic package that they had on there. So we're going to wait to hear what the official word is, but there was, like you mentioned, there were some comments made and they just wanted to be safe.
That you are really interested or hope to get to in the racing calendar, because there's no shortage of amazing race weekend events or even other motorcycle events that are coming up. What's sort of on your calendar?
Well, Road Atlanta is Road Atlanta. Road Atlanta is one of those legendary racetracks that's been on the schedule forever, and it's one of Kevin Schwantz's home tracks. Aaron Yates as well. Scott Russell's home track. So if you want to catch some motorcycle road race history, that's a good. Jamie James is always there as well. So that's always a good round to make. Mid Ohio is going to be legendary. Road America is newly paved. It is so fast now. Well, as fast as a 4-mile track can be, but the camping there is amazing. They call it the National Park of Speed. It's a fantastic facility. COTA down in Texas is one of the best facilities in North America now to rival Road America and maybe Laguna Seca sometimes, but those are the big races for me. So Road Atlanta. Barber is unbelievable. If you've never been to the Barber Motorsports Museum, that has to be a mecca for you. You have to just figure out whether you're going to go there for the WERA Grand National Finals or if you're going to go there for the MotoAmerica Pro Race. But you got to get to that museum. It is motorcycle history.
Yeah, and you really need 2 full days to see it all. I went through it about a day, and I at some point I got to get back there and see the rest of it.
And it's always changing.
Yeah, and they have got the most incredible collection of motorcycles, many of them that raced here in the Daytona 200 back in the 1970s, a whole bunch of great Yamaha TZ750s.
Yeah, it actually has 2 Michael Jordan Motorsports machines as well. It has the 2004 Yamaha R1 that Montez Stewart rode with the number 123 on the front, first year of the Michael Jordan Motorsports team. And then year 2, it has Jason Pridmore's number 43 Suzuki, which was the 20th anniversary of the Jordan brand and the 20th anniversary of Suzuki, of the Suzuki GSXR. So, they have both of those there with the suits and helmets and the whole thing. And they kind of move it around to different places, but it's kind of fun to have 2 of our motorcycles in there. And, we offered to, hey, you can have 5 motorcycles if you'd like, but especially when they're writing checks. But so it's kind of fun that there's not only do they have some of the old historic motorcycles there, including some of the belt drive Indians and Harley Davidsons, but they also have some of the new sport bikes that were really part of the new millennium. So, but yeah, and you had touched on the
a couple some of the events that I hope to get to, and pretty much on my calendar. Of course, you and I will be back here at Daytona in October. I think it might be the best kept secret in American road racing that Bike Week is fabulous. The Daytona 200 is amazing, but there's also another event here called Biketoberfest that has races over 3 days, plus the Team Hammer Advanced Riding School on the Thursday, but that's coming up October 18, 19, 20. The American Superbike Racing Association here for all of their final races of the year. I haven't seen confirmation as to whether the AMA Grand Finals are going to be here as well, but put that in your calendar, October 18, 19, 20, particularly if you're in the Southeast.
BRL will probably be here.
Yeah, Bagger, hopefully Rob Badu and the BRL will be back here. And, of course, they'll be up at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, a.k.a. Mosport, on the August 9, 10, 11 weekend to run in conjunction with all of the sport bike and superbike classes up there.
And something that a lot of folks don't know, unless they've been here before or they're very familiar with the ASRA, is that they have a team challenge, which is, by the way, 201 miles around Daytona Speedway. They have it at other tracks as well, but it's part of their national championship. But what other teams do is they use that 200-mile team challenge as a test for the Daytona 200. So if you want to get up really close and personal to a lot of these, to some of these teams, you can do that in the fall.
Yeah, indeed. And one other event, of course, last year they celebrated the 100th anniversary of the Loudon Classic. Unfortunately, they got weather that was bordering on what they got here for 2 days for the Daytona 500. I think the race ended up getting red flagged 9 times,
Oh
and
my gosh.
Tyler Scott finally won it, but they've got a purse of $250,000.
That's a lot of money.
They've added a $50,000 bagger race to the schedule, and that is going to be running on the first weekend, or really the second weekend of June.
Yep.
I think it's the 7th and 8th, the Friday, Saturday. And, I saw Eric Wood here. He's been involved with the racing at Loudon for many, many years. And then I think we'll also be up there on the Sunday and Monday. The USCRA, Bob Coy and his vintage group are going to be at Canon. And then on the Tuesday, a really special event that they resurrected a few years ago is the hill climb in Weirs Beach up Tower Street. And Richard Chambers and I announced that last year. So looking forward to getting there.
That
So
should be fun.
certainly no shortage of racetracks and events you can catch in 2024, whether it's MotoAmerica or ASRA, where Kenny will be handling all of the Midwest events, or maybe ventured north of the border to catch some of the CSBK Canadian Superbike races, or a return to New Hampshire for the Loudon Classic.
Yeah, they're going to have me do some of the national races, so I'll bounce around a little bit more this year than I did last year. But yeah, it's exciting. And you want to talk real quick about the flat track last night?
Yeah, either you can, or we can bring in our flat track expert, Alan Matlock. Now, Alan, I think Alan is going to do a DNS on this one.
Yeah.
Did not start the podcast. So, Kenny, jam-packed over there. Beautiful night. The weather was incredible. And as I was leaving yesterday, I couldn't believe the crowd that was already in there, and they were only running practice and qualifying before the big show under the lights.
Yeah, and not only was it packed full of fans, it was packed full of teams. I've never seen that many teams at a flat track before. So everybody, wants that coveted Daytona doubleheader trophy. But in the Build Train Race event sponsored by Royal Enfield, of course, these are the ladies of racing who build their own Royal Enfield 650, and those motorcycles are about 450 pounds, and some of the ladies aren't necessarily large in stature and or tall to muscle them around. But last night, Kenzie Luker, who finished second on Thursday night, ended up taking the win. She's about 95 pounds muscling around this 450-pound Royal Enfield 650. So it was a sight to see. Taylor Little, who was the winner the night before, took second place, and Maya Mafi, who was third on Thursday night, was also third last night. So good race for them, the Royal Enfield Build Train Race ladies. In the singles class, it was Drain, the Australian, who finished first. Kopp, who took the win on Thursday night, finished second. Gautier was third, followed by Sadoff and Logan Eisenart in fifth. And in the twins class, it was Robinson. Robinson took the win. He was third the night before. Sammy Halbert finished a good, strong second place over Daniels. Bowman and Mees round out the top 5. So it was a really good night at the flat track.
And again, we talk about championships going down to the final round. Jared Mees looking to become the first 10-time Grand National champion. I think no podium finishes, but he picked up some decent points where he's going to be right there. And again, look for that championship to go down to the final round before it is all over.
You just never know what can happen. You got to, to first.
At Daytona, 82nd Daytona 200. Of course, we didn't run back in 2020, but the weather overall was superb. I think we had a little bit of rain overnight on Tuesday that went through the area, but other than that, it's been spectacular. Warming up into the mid to high 80s the last couple of days, and lots of motorcycles in town. Kenny, I don't know if you had a chance to get down on Main Street, but I think a lot of people. And I've never seen the infield as packed as it was here over the last couple of days. I think you got to go back probably 30 years that they had the infield as jammed as it was here.
Well, it turns, the viewing area from turn 3 all the way down into turn number 4 and turn 5, that used to be a large grass area, some parking, and people would come and hang out there and do some partying and stuff. That's all RVs now. It's packed.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. I've never seen so many RVs in one place. I mean, it looks like an RV convention. It's really quite extraordinary. But yeah, I've never seen this many people at Daytona Speedway. The energy in the motorcycle industry is great right now. So hopefully, I always test our folks on Cycle Vision Network. I always test everybody and say, hey, look, it's our job to bring one more person to the racetrack. It's our job to put one more person on a motorcycle every year and teach them how to ride. So I just encourage everyone to do that. And back at home, get one more person involved in riding motorcycles, get one more person to the racetrack, and our industry will continue to flourish.
Yeah. Well, we want to thank the folks here at Daytona International Speedway, everyone with MotoAmerica that helped make all of these podcasts and all of the great content. We hope you've enjoyed it all over the last few days. I also want to thank Christy Clamforth and Al Charles and their army of volunteers who are doing some wonderful things at the Daytona 200 Monument.
Yeah.
So if you haven't been to the monument, the next time you're here in Daytona, go check it out. It tells the story.
And follow them on social media so that you know when the events are coming. And please, please, please donate. They have some great stuff that's for sale. They're doing an auction, some different photos. They have a Daytona 200 book that's only $20, which is amazing to me. So invest in little things like that. It's great coffee table fodder, and it helps a really, really great cause.
Yeah. I'd also want to thank Doug Miner here in the Media Center who got us the results as quickly as they were put out there. Doug goes way back. His late mom and dad were fixtures here in the Media Center at Daytona. Kenny, it's been an absolute blast working with you. I hope the folks out there have enjoyed all of the content. And if you're going to be heading out of Daytona, heading back home, safe travels on the roads as you get back home.
Yeah, we're going to pack up. We're going to get out of here. Thanks to my good friend Alan Matlock. He was invaluable this week. He just really a great backbone for us, helping us get content and put things together and helping take care of the rig and everything. And Chris Lilligard, who flew in last minute to help get some content as well. It's always good to have folks like that supporting us here at Cycle Vision Network and the Exhaust Noise Podcast. So thanks for everybody at home from Daytona International Speedway and the world famous World Center of Racing. This is Kenny Abbott with the world famous Pat Gonsalves signing off till next time. We'll see you in the paddock.